Welcome back to another segment of Behind the Scenes of the Waltons. Today, I'm continuing my conversation, very in depth, a little different for my usual conversations with guest stars. But Willie and I decided to track through a number of aspects of the time we've known each other and our various careers and just life and the journey that one sometimes ends up taking in life. So, please join me as I continue my conversation with Willie Aames. I realize in talking with you that, I knew this much about you from a certain interaction and because of our shared background, which is minimal by comparison with your whole life. And you're remarkable. What you've gone through and that you turned your life around and you got back on track and you made it work. You didn't whine and complain and go, poor me, and everybody owes me. And, bravo. You're a remarkable person, and listening to your stories is just a testament to who you are and your character, and that we all have those moments, those turning points in our life where things, go better or worse, and how we respond to them and how we get on with our life says so much about who we are. So I always loved and respected you, but now I'm just like, oh my God, you are bravo. Really, I'm just very moved by your story, and I'm so glad that we have reconnected at this point in your life where things are going well for you. I know you've been very happily married. You found Winnie is a wonderful, wonderful woman. So you're a success story, and surviving Hollywood and surviving being a child star. We've both heard and know so many not so happy endings, and it's difficult growing up in the spotlight as a child actor, or when your career takes, when you're not at the top of your game anymore, and you're not it's a flavor of the month kind of business. When you're out, you're out. You're not flavor of the month anymore, and you got to get on with your life. So it's challenging, and putting yourself into a good path that you have created for yourself that has brought you to this point where I think you're happy.
I am. I'm going to share something with you if you'll bear with me for just a moment. It's always fascinated me and hurt me when people somehow take personalities like you or myself or anyone else that's had any measure of success in the industry, and somehow there's a certain amount of shame attached to no longer being in the limelight or no longer being at the top of your game. And I'm sharing this with you because it's something that I wrote. It's my definition of has been. It's a noun, informal. Definition: a derogatory term utilized by the insecure to describe a level of success they've neither achieved nor understand. And what I've learned is that society changes, societal tastes change, societal norms change, shows end, careers move on, people's lives change. I've experienced as much change, I think, as anybody. I woke up at 47. I was no longer a producer, a director, a writer, an executive, a celebrity, a husband, a father. I didn't know what I was. I was 47, 48 years old, and I had to start over from scratch. No one wanted to know me, especially after all of that publicity. No one wanted to know me. And I had to really come to terms with, how do I become the best me I can be? And one of the things that I really had to deal with was the shame that gets heaped on us if we haven't maintained a level of achievement that the world thinks we should. I was watching the Hall of Fame inductees a while back, and recognizing, my heroes age, the people that, and thinking of what social media might say to them about the way that they've aged and how their bodies look and all of this sort of expectation. And to me, they were just the most wonderful thing. We all had our reading glasses, and our bodies have changed. And, some of us, have things in different places now. And what I've really learned is that it's okay. It's really okay that all of these things change. And it's really okay because you and I get to sit and do things like this where we get to talk and share our experiences and connect again on a much deeper level with those experiences. I mean, you on stage and doing your as a producer and a writer and continuing to be creative and perform at a level that suits you. And it's one of the big reasons why I just left, for the third time, another, executive position at yet another company that was global, because I still feel as though if I'm going to be true to those things, those lessons that I learned, I need to sort of step back and not allow myself to get sucked into a life that doesn't mean anything. There's somebody that I think who called me a few weeks ago and said his cancer was back. And he had been in remission, somebody very well known in the industry, and he'd been in remission for 18 months. And I went over and sat with him and I said, "How you doing?" And he said, "When you walk into a doctor's office and you look at a monitor and it says 0.03 on the monitor, and that 3 represents how many months you have left to live, it's pretty jarring." And this guy has worked with the biggest names in Hollywood. And I said, "Are you okay?" And he said, No, because I had 18 months of remission and I worried about all the wrong things.
Wow.
And now I can't get them back. And that, Judy, I've lost so many friends. We're losing friends in the industry and people that we all knew, the Tony Dows and the, Hank Soroyans and the Ron Zimmermans and all of the people that I really adored. And I really looked at my life and said, okay, just recently, my wife, Winnie, and I, now the ships brought me to Vancouver, where I met my wife. And we just wrote a Hallmark movie based on, inspired about how we met. And I knew when I sold a script and got the movie produced, let alone it being, about our romance, I was back. I had achieved what I needed to achieve when I was lying in the bushes in that, at the Hollywood Bowl, saying, I am not going to end up a statistic. I am going to fight my way back. And when that movie got made, when that movie aired, and I sat with, the love of my life, and I would watch the story about us taking place on the screen, I knew I was back. And I knew at that moment too, that I also needed to move on from the comfort level of where I was. And this experience with this dear friend who was going through such a tough challenge, and I have no fewer than 4 going through the same sort of challenge right now, I realized that all of these experiences and all of these relationships and all of these things that we've been so privileged to do and so lucky to be a part of, the good and the bad, the ups and the downs, I'm absolutely grateful for every single moment of them. And it's time now to not only give back, but go back to those things that inspire me, not creating some other social media campaign for a company or not doing these, but what are the things that really inspire me? And then I started watching your podcast. And I said, Judy's tapping into one of the great things in her life and in my life and in the fans of the show's life. And I'm going to do more, because I typically turn these down. I mean, I turn them down continuously. And I want to thank you for the opportunity to remember why I do what I do and why we did what we did, and to reminisce about some of the most wonderful moments of our lives and really enjoy the time that we have left. That's what it's about now. It's about, if I looked back in my life over let's, who knows how much time we have, right? But if at some point you look back, can you look back at that time and say, time well spent?
Mm.
Time well spent. So that's why I've pulled back. That's why I've connected with you. Your time well spent.
Thank you.
Chatting with you and being in your life and being your friend and being a part of it is time well spent. And thank you for letting me do that.
Wow. Thank you so much. I mean, this, to me, yeah, the people are what the activity was enjoyable, but the people made the activity enjoyable. Because I'm sure you have. I've certainly done jobs where I couldn't wait for the job to be over because it was miserable. And this, because I will deal with really difficult situations on a job if it's a good group and and the people make it worthwhile. Then you're like, okay, I will change in a closet, I will be freezing, I will work 18-hour days, I will. But you get in something where the conditions could be great, but the people just treat you like you're nothing, and it's miserable and people aren't enjoying it, and it's like, I don't want to be there. So more and more, and I think that's what the 50 years now of the Waltons most means. I mean, we're really proud of the show, but that I still have so many people, not our cast, who are still like family and always have been, but I'm getting this chance through this show to reconnect with people I haven't talked with in ages. And some of them I can't reach, and some of them I don't know how to reach, and some of them go, no, thank you. But it just, yeah, it really is the people in my life. So, and you
Yeah.
are one of those people.
Well, you've always been an inspiration, always. I remember you on the show, and I remember that you had a whole vision for what you were doing then. I don't know whether you knew you gave that persona off or not, but you, even then, and even when we've had lunch together and we've talked about different projects, and I've always been so proud of you, stood up for what you wanted to be.
Mm.
And you've always gone and done your own thing. And I think when you're that focused, maybe you don't realize what sort of power you sort of radiate. And
Mm.
you've always radiated a confidence and a power and a direction. I remember thinking during Battle in the Network Stars sometimes, and not only is she a competitor, but you just seem to have your act together. and it's an inspiration. It's one of those things where you, like, people leave that impression. It's like Gregory Harrison, I mean, he's just the sweetest, like, most lovable guy on the planet. And you are as well, but you have a confidence that I never had.
Mm.
And I think that's what it was, is I never, even for all that I did, I was never a confident person.
Mm.
I was always very, mortified. I was scared to death my entire life. But you seem to have that confidence, and I remember taking that from you when away when we worked together.
Well, thank you. That means a lot to me. But I mean, this has been such a gift to have this time with everything, and as busy as you are, and having to deal with the phone calls and the whatever. I was just so grateful for you to make time for this. And I know that
I'm really grateful that you allowed me to do it. I felt a little foolish commenting on your Facebook page, because I was baiting you. I was hoping you'd ask me.
Oh, I don't even know if I saw that.
Yeah, you did.
I
You
did
did.
see,
I said anything
because I had reached out to you once before and asked you, and I never got a response. So
I'm sorry.
I hesitated. I went, well, he kind of never answered me before. So
yeah, I'm so
okay.
sorry.
And so I thought, well, I'll try it again. The worst that'll happen is he'll say no, and I know we'll still be friends, even if you said no, I don't care to do it.
No, I was
So,
I was watching your episodes, and I was particularly with David, and I was watching those things. And I was like, oh, I want to. I'm her friend. I want to be on her show. She didn't ask me, but I didn't realize that you had.
yeah,
So
sometimes, yeah, messages
I
get.
thought I was being
I
clever and
just don't
baiting you
watch
into it.
Facebook enough. I just
Yeah.
don't have the time to get on my Facebook page as much as I'd like. And I try to at least read all the comments on my YouTube, but beyond that, it's like there's only so many hours in a day.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Well, it's been a privilege.
yeah.
Thank you very much, Judy. I really appreciate it. And I appreciate you having me on. Like I said, anything for you,
Oh,
whatever you need, you let me know. I'm there.
same, right back at you, you know. Who knows what these next phases of our life will be? Who knows where you'll see Judy and Willie and what we might be doing?
The best,
That's right. We'll
the
be,
best phase.
yeah.
I remember I used to do all of the commercials for Branson, Missouri when I
Mm,
was living in Kansas City, and I was chatting with Tony Orlando.
mm.
Remember Tony Orlando
Yeah.
and Dawn?
Yeah.
And I remember Tony saying, like Mel Tillis was there, and Andy Williams was there, and the Lennon sisters were there, and the Osmonds were there, and everybody was there. And I was talking with Tony, and I said, "What do you think about Yakov Smirnoff and all that?" And he said, "What do you think about all of this?" He goes, "Willie, you're not seeing an old Osmond or the old Lennon sisters or the old Tony Orlando or the old Andy Williams. You're seeing the best
Mm,
Andy Williams, the best Osmonds, the best Lennon sisters, the best." And I'm like, you know what? You're right. You're right. And I just, what an inspiration he is too, to sort of just
yeah.
grow into the next phase. So let's do it together.
Absolutely.
All right.
I really want to thank Willie for coming and being my special guest. I hope you've enjoyed this. I'll be back with more behind the scenes of the Waltons and more Ask Judy. Thanks for watching.